Good. We were saying, some of the staff were saying, like, this weather's starting to think that we're going to be a tropical climate here in New York. So good. Well, thank you for coming to Satsang this evening. Is anyone here for the first time? A couple of people? Welcome. So earlier at random, I opened this book called Inspiring Stories. It's a number of stories from Swami Sivananda, for whom this organization is named. Because and the story seems to have to do with something at least that's been on my mind this week. We, in our morning satsangs, we who are staff here, have our early morning satsangs, and we started studying a scripture called Atmabodha, which is a writing by the Vedanta philosopher Adi Shankaracharya. So he's the beginning of our lineage of monks. He was a great teacher of Advaita Vedanta philosophy. So if that's a new term to you, this is the yoga philosophy that says underlying everything is essence of unity. So that's why we always say we're trying to see the unity in diversity. So International Day of Yoga is coming up. That helps us remember, right? People all around the world celebrating yoga together. Pride is coming up here in Chelsea, right here in Midtown. The whole Pride March is happening. Helps us to remember. Look past the form. Look past the difference and see the formless. See the essence of things. So New York City's best for this, right? This is what New York City does best, I think. It loves all. It has such a big heart. You know, everybody's welcome. I love this very much. So this is what Vedanta philosophy tells us, that we have different names and forms, we have different faces, characteristics, preferences, value systems, memories, plans, and all that stuff is temporary. And to a Vedantin, if it's temporary, it's not ultimately real. It has its relative existence, we're experiencing it, that's fine. You know, you should live with what is experienced also and honor it. But don't fall for the temporary thing as if it's forever. Don't stake your happiness in a changeable thing, because then your happiness doesn't last. That's the basics of it, right? So Vedanta philosophy says all is one, or all is Brahman. That's the name Vedanta gives to the one self of all. So the consciousness that is witnessing me is the same consciousness that is witnessing you. It's one consciousness. Seems to be localized for a moment, but that's just a trick of nature, you could say. So we have started to identify with the temporary, with the body and mind, and we've lost sight of the connection that we share always, at all times. And so Vedanta philosophy wants us to come back to the essence of things. Study of it, it's a pretty simple matter, the teaching in the end. But study and practice of it is not such a simple matter, because we have very strong habits of our ideas of who we are and what is the world, and what is action in the world, and what's the point of life. We have very strong ideas and habits around that, and it takes a lot of practice to undo. And sometimes people like to read the Vedantic scriptures and think they can go like straight to the realization without doing a lot of other preparatory work for that kind of real understanding to take dawn in their consciousness, so that it stops seeming like individual consciousness and starts becoming consciousness of unity, which frees us from fear. So it's very easy to read these scriptures and think like, okay, I got it. What's next? You know, okay, I got it. All is Brahman. I don't have to do anything. If this is all illusion, if everything that's changeable is not ultimately real, then it doesn't matter. I'm going to sit back and eat bonbons and watch Netflix. I mean, it's okay if you want to do that. That's not. But if that's all we're doing and we think it doesn't matter, this experienced reality, and we're still identified with it though, if I still think, this is me, and that's you, and I'm doing this, then I've got a lot of other sadhana to do before I can sit back and say, all is Brahman, I don't have to do anything. But yogis like to do that though. All is Brahman. I don't have to do anything. And so they use that as a kind of way to be sloppy, be distracted, not take responsibility. And so we have to be careful when we're studying philosophy like this. We should study it. It's very good. For some of us, it resolves things that didn't make sense our whole life until we came to this understanding. But when we study, we have to be very careful to do it with balance. And have that understanding start to pervade our actions and our thoughts and our feelings on a daily basis. We have to make it practical. And that's what is adorable about this lineage. They are very practical yogis. So I was thinking about this. So how do we do this? How do we really be grounded, but also keep our mind on what's really important, what's really true? How do we make the teachings practical? And I just happened to open to this story earlier. And by the way, I also read a quote from Ram Dass earlier, along the same lines also. It's more from a devotional standpoint. He said this, he said, just because you are seeing divine light, experiencing waves of bliss, or conversing with gods and goddesses is no reason not to know your zip code. I like this, right? We gotta stay grounded, deal with the apparent reality as it is, with love, respect, with joy, with absolute clarity and attention. Attention to detail. Because each of these little details is absolutely divine in essence. If reality is ultimately one of unity, then there's nothing unsacred in this life. And we have to start attending to the little things with as much love and care as we do to the bigger things. We have to attend to the things that we think are small and unworthy and unimportant with the same care and attention that we have to do with the things that we think are big and worthy and important. Does that make sense? So, we have to be grounded, but also keep our mind in what is lasting and true. That's quite a thing to do. Well, they say that Vedanta is like a razor's edge path. So here's a story I opened to. It's called A Practical Vedantin. So, here's the story. Radha Krishna had read a few books on Vedanta, such as Panchadashi and Atmabodha. He thought within himself that he was a great Vedantin and a realized soul. He never studied books under a guru and didn't get any initiation, and the practice of meditation and contemplation was unknown to him. One day, Radhakrishna went to a shop for a cup of milk. While drinking the milk, he was philosophizing with himself, thinking, there's only one self everywhere. I have also read, everything is mine, all is Brahman. So let me become a practical Vedantin now. The shopkeeper had to go to a neighboring shop to purchase some sugar. The box in which the money was kept open, he had forgotten to lock it up. Radhakrishna quietly took out a 100 rupee note from the box and walked away silently down the street. He thought within himself, this money box is mine. This money is mine. Everything is mine. Today I have realized the right significance of Vedanta. How practical Vedanta is. How beautiful it is to live in the true spirit of Vedanta. How happy I am. The wealth of the whole world is mine now. Everything is mine. The shopkeeper returned and found the money box open. He counted the money and found that a 100 rupee note was missing. He immediately ran down the street and caught hold of Ramakrishna and handed him over to the police inspector. Radhakrishna appeared before the district magistrate for trial. The magistrate asked, Radhakrishna, did you take the 100 rupee note from the box of the shopkeeper? Radhakrishna replied, yes, my lordship, I took it from the box. The magistrate asked, why did you take it? Radhakrishna replied, I wanted to practice and feel Vedanta in daily life. I desire to live in the spirit of Vedanta. I have read the Vedantic books which state everything is mine, all is mine. So I thought that the money in the box was mine and I took it. I have not stolen the money, I am not a thief. Very beautiful Vedanta indeed, replied the magistrate. The world is really in dire need of such Vedantins. Then only will the misery of the world come to an end. Well, Radha Krishna, listen to the other part of Vedanta. It says, I am not the body. I am the self. Let me see how far you have conquered attachment to the body and whether you have really gone above body consciousness. The magistrate asked the police constable to thrash Radha Krishna with a whip. Radha Krishna cried out bitterly and said, "Oh, my lordship, I have not put this part of Vedanta into practice. This is very difficult. I am only the body now. Kindly request the police constable to cease beating me. I cannot bear the pain any longer. I will swoon shortly. I have realized my folly now. Vedanta is really very difficult to practice. I have come to my senses. I will not commit such foolish acts in the future." The magistrate said, "Radha Krishna, go to a Brahmanishta, Brahmashrotri guru," so someone who's realized this truth. "Live with him for some 12 years, serve him with devotion, study the Vedas under him carefully, develop all the divine qualities." That's why we do all our other sadhanas, right? To develop divine qualities. So we can actually entertain this understanding. Then only can you say, "I am Brahman, all is mine." Radha Krishna obeyed the instructions of the magistrate. He proceeded to Rishikesh and found a guru. He lived with him for a period of 12 years, practiced rigorous austerities and meditation, and eventually realized the self. And there's Swami Sivananda's commentary. These days, dry or lip Vedantins are in abundance. There are many Radha Krishnas. Mere talk on Vedanta, mere study, cannot make one a practical Vedantin. Practical Vedantins are rare. You must have a correct and proper understanding of the scriptures, and you have to remove the impurities and tossing of the mind. You have to struggle very hard. Rigorous sadhana has to be done. The false identification with the body has to be conquered. Then you will rest in your own essential divine nature or Satchidananda state. Then only can one become a practical Vedantin or realized sage or Jivanmukta. Glory to practical Vedantins who have realized their Atman. May their blessings be upon you all. So what does it mean then? How can we practice being a practical Vedantin? Swami Sivananda says it in another place like this. You must put Vedanta in daily practice in every action of yours. Well, that's what Radha Krishna thought he was doing, right? Oh, if all is mine, then in my actions I can take what is mine. Because that's what Vedanta wants us to understand. All is my own self. But how does that actually take expression? Love. Love and respect. We love and respect each thing and being exactly as it is. That's how it starts. And care of all those beings. Right? We become devoted to the welfare of all beings. That's practical to Vedanta. And it turns out that's what living dharmically means. Right? We talk about living dharmically. How do I do the dharmic thing? I treat each being, each thing, even an inanimate object with care, with gentleness, with reverence, because it's my own self. It's not what can I take from my own self, it's what can I give, because it's all my own self. It's not thinking that someone's competing with you or getting in your way or going to take some resource that you think you should have. It's understanding that the gifts that come to you come through you. That the more you want to bless and love, the more blessings and love come to you and through you. The more you want to share, not take for yourself. So we have to look at this, right? So what did Radha Krishna do? He became selfish. And that's the pitfall. In yoga, if we're not practicing in a really rounded way, if we're not doing some service, and doing some devotional practices like the chanting we were doing, if we're not practicing meditation, pranayama, asanas, without these things, we fall into the same pitfall. We become more selfish. We become more arrogant. We become more distant. But a Vedantin doesn't become more aloof, more special, more unique. A Vedantin becomes more simple, more ordinary, more interested in what connects us, what we share. So this is what Swami Sivananda says. You must radiate love to one and all. You must think of unity, speak of unity, and act in unity. If you deliver a thrilling lecture and say, I am the all, I am the one self in all, there's nothing but myself, and then show in action the very next moment a different attitude of selfishness and separateness, you will not produce any result, any effect. So our evolution stops. We only really evolve when we seek to lift everyone up. Just for one little last bit of advice on that, let's take a random message from Swami Vishnu. So he's the one who founded this whole organization in the name of his guru, Swami Sivananda. I've been I'm becoming a joke almost with the staff. I keep opening the same page. I keep saying this book is rigged. So, but I made sure not to this time. So here's a picture of Swami Vishnu with dogs. See, this is when, right? So here's example of practical Vedanta. Animals loved him. Swami Sivananda also, like he would say like this, here's how we can practice. How can we practice that? Seeing and saying oneself and all. Swami Sivananda said, talk to the grass, right? Shake hands with the leaves. Make friends. He does mental prostrations, Swami Sivananda did mental prostrations to donkeys, to people, to everything. Sometimes we have to kind of playfully put on an attitude of reverence. Even if we don't fully feel it, if we do it with the attitude of playfulness, it will come. Like when we're pretending to laugh and suddenly we're really laughing. We pretend to love with some real sincerity. We're trying, and we so quickly find we're actually loving. And you could see that around Swami Sivananda and Swami Vishnu. Like all beings were attracted to them because they radiated that kind of love. They mixed with everybody. They didn't hold themselves apart. Now this is a section called Karma and Reincarnation. So if we're seeking how to be practical, then we also remember the law of karma, which will take us back to the Vedantic understanding also. Basic law of karma. What you want in life, you have to do for someone else first. So it has this double effect of making me a giving person, and in that giving, I realize our connection. So here's what Swami Vishnu says. You are not born blank, like a blank paper. Your mind is not like an empty notebook. Your mind is like a computer or a manuscript in which different knowledge is recorded in your subconscious mind from previous incarnations. The knowledge which is strong and centralized is at the top of your conscious mind. Your subconscious mind contains infinite knowledge from past lives. And then, like a churning rod churns the buttermilk, slowly the cream comes to the top. Your parents and grandparents may not have ever known yoga. They may not appreciate what you're doing. And some of them may even be bent against what you are doing. Why? Why are you different from your parents, elders, brothers, or friends? When they churned their subconscious minds in the past, they didn't have the knowledge of yoga. There was knowledge of chemistry maybe. There may be knowledge of mathematics or politics. When you churn your subconscious mind, the cream will only be what you actually experienced in the past. That is why if you didn't have the experience of yoga in the past, you wouldn't be learning yoga today. You'd become a chemist, a mathematician, a politician, or even a terrorist or a revolutionary. These various tendencies, these characters, are not given by God, nor are they hereditary, nor can you hand over this knowledge to your children unless they also have this knowledge from the past. Your children can go completely against what you are doing, though you love them very much. The knowledge that you are learning is all within. To a certain extent, it exists in your subconscious mind. This is called samskara in Sanskrit. Samskara means the latent impressions or tendencies, like a tulip bulb lying under the snow in a latent, unmanifest state. Many of the topics that I'm talking to you about will be very difficult for you to understand, but then you may hear certain words like karma or reincarnation, which the moment that you hear them shake you up. You say, oh my God, I know that. But you may be hearing them for the first time. Do you have that experience? You came to yoga and almost like more like remembering something, a little bit like coming home somehow. Ultimately, all that wisdom is there. Right? If there's one consciousness, all wisdom is there, all knowledge is there for you. But we have to go more and more and more past the relative and the temporary. But for now, as long as we have some identification with it, we can't bypass it. So we must integrate it. And that's what happens, that churning of the mind. That's why life sometimes feels at least as challenging, if not more than before, when we start into a more intensive or regular spiritual practice. It's doing that churning of the subconscious mind. And before the cream comes up, some other stuff comes up too, right? And you think, my God, these practices are terrible. No, they're beautiful. And they're helping you integrate and assimilate and become more whole all the time. So you can glow, so you can rise to your full stature, so you can contribute all the gifts that you have to share and remember who you really are.